Hey, it's Brett, and you're watching Brett and Some Books. Today we are continuing Who Ate the First Oyster by Cody Cassidy. And this chapter is called Who Rode the First Horse? If the time of our species on Earth were a day, this happened 27 minutes before midnight, 5,600 years ago. In 2006, at an archaeological site in northern Kazakhstan, home of an ancient culture known as the Botai, the zoo archaeologist Sandra Olson and her team dug through the ancient human trash pits, testing the soil until they struck the horse historian's version of a gold mine, a thick layer of 5,600-year-old horse manure. Because no culture, past or present, has ever bothered to throw away the feces of wild animals, Olson's discovery is the first evidence of the horse's domestication. A bow-tie garbage pit containing horse manure is the equivalent of a modern-day trash can filled with dog and cat poop, but no bear scat. If future historians dug it up, they would conclude that we lived with dogs and cats, but not bears. The ancient horse manure in the Botai camp is the oldest proof humans had domesticated the horse, but many researchers suspect the Botai acquired their horses from older herding cultures to their west who had a history of animal domestication. Exactly who first domesticated the horse is an unsettled debate among scholars. What is settled is the way they were first used. It wasn't for riding, but for food. Horses were a source of meat and milk, and cultures of the high steppe prized them for their ability to graze through snow, which their sheep and cattle could not. There's no evidence these first domesticators ever rode their horses, probably because they had no means of control. They had no saddle, no stirrups, and, most important, no bridle. Without any way to turn or stop, riding a horse would have been a short, potentially bone-breaking experience. It may have been done occasionally as a stunt, but horses without bridles would have resembled motorcycles without handlebars. Exciting, but poor transportation. The Botai changed that. In 2009, working in a Botai archaeological site, the anthropologist David Anthony found a set of curiously worn horse teeth that sit alongside Neil Armstrong's boot print on the moon and the first wheel-rutted road in Germany as physical proof of the most significant moments in the history of human transportation. The simple abrasion, amounting to a few shavings taken off the horse's front molar, is, as Anthony later determined, the exact and distinctive damage that occurs when a horse manipulates its bridle. Worn horse teeth sound anticlimactic compared to prints in the moon dust or ancient roads, but these ground teeth prove that for the first time in human history, someone traveled overland faster than their legs could carry them. Whoever invented the bridle didn't just improve land transportation, they invented it. Who rode the horse? I'll call him Napoleon in honor of Napoleon Cybulski, the Polish physiologist who first isolated adrenaline, a molecule that played no small role in this moment of inspiration. Napoleon was born in northern Kazakhstan nearly 6,000 years ago, which is about the time when, thousands of miles to the west, bronze was first forged, early cities formed, and scribes were even scratching some of the first words onto clay tablets. But Napoleon would have been oblivious to these developments. He was a member of the Botai, a culture utterly and peculiarly obsessed with the horse. When Napoleon wasn't raising his penned and domesticated horses, he was hunting wild ones on foot. Horse meat was the bulk of his diet, and horse milk made up the majority of his beverages. He would have drunk horse milk in the morning, then allowed it to ferment into tangy alcoholic drink kumis, and drunk it again in the evening. He tended to no crops or other animals with the exception of dogs. He used horse bones for his tools, horsehair for rope, and horse skin for leather, and when he died, his family would have buried him beside a horse. If Napoleon ever rode horses before he invented the bridle, the experience was probably brief and done as a kind of rodeo stunt, according to Anthony. It may have been the kind of activity a risk-taking teenager without a fully developed prefrontal cortex might try. If he were born today, Napoleon would probably be familiar with the inside of a doctor's office. Psychologists would tell you he was overstimulated by novel situations. Everyone else might just call him an adrenaline junkie. The bones Napoleon may have, or the horses Napoleon may have jumped on, though dangerous to ride, were already domesticated. They had, through thousands of years of artificial selection, become tamed and accustomed to humans. While scholars don't know precisely when, where, or how this process started, most paleozoologists now believe domestication was originally done accidentally, when cultures in the steppe penned wild horses near their camps in order to have a reliable supply of meat. Gradually, as the captors preferentially killed the wild ones, too difficult to manage, and bred the tamer ones, the species became docile. Domestication is extraordinarily rare in the animal kingdom. According to geographer Jared Diamond, it's only possible if an animal possesses 6 different behavioral and biological characteristics. First, he writes, the potential domesticate cannot compete with humans for food. It must eat scraps like the pig, or even better, eat something humans cannot, like grass. Second, a potential domesticate must also be able to breed in captivity. If, like the cheetah, the animal requires long mating runs or elaborate territorial displays, domestication is impractical. Third, the animal has to reach maturity quickly, so humans can efficiently raise and reap its benefits. Fourth, it has to be a pack animal with a social hierarchy like dogs. Pack animals have a genetic predisposition for subservience, and humans can slide into the role of pack leader. Fifth, the animal cannot be skittish or possess a strong instinct to flee. This rules out animals like deer. Finally, unlike the zebra, the animal has to be either naturally docile or able to be bred into docility. The zebra's intractable aggression, regardless of selective breeding, has made it unviable as a potential domesticate, despite what archaeologists can only assume have been repeated several times. The small number of successfully domesticated animals speaks to the extreme rarity of this combination. Humans haven't domesticated an animal of any significance in 2,000 years, with all due respect to the ostrich, and the majority of the world's meat comes from only 3 domesticates. Even in the case of the horse, their domestication may have hinged on the discovery of a single, unusually docile stallion. While mares naturally follow the leading stallion in a pack, wild stallions are hostile and fight with other stallions for females. They do not naturally follow, and are by default either searching for a pack of females or leading one. They would not have taken to the corral easily, and genetic tests on modern horses suggest that while many mares bred into the domesticated population, there may have been only a single Adam stallion. This stallion was presumably calmer, whose demeanor would have likely won him a few successful couplings in the wild, but who apparently enjoyed wild success in the early horse pens. By Napoleon's time, Horses had been domesticated for untold generations, but with no means of controlling them. Horses were simply a source of food and material before Napoleon invented the bridle. The simplest form of the first bridle would have taken the simplest form the first bridle would have taken is now called a war bridle, which is nothing more than a leather rope looped around a horse's lower jaw and locked into place with a piece of wood. This ingenious invention can unobtrusively guide a horse, thanks to a gap between their front incisors and rear premolars, where a strap, or modernly, a metal bit, can sit atop the gums. When tugged, the rope pinches the horse's gums, and the horse reflexively turns its head and body toward the tug to relieve the pain. It's a simple tool that can be used to great effect. The Native American tribes of the plain used war bridles without saddles and were considered some of the greatest riders in the world. But the bridle's simplicity in design belies a complexity in concept. Napoleon may have been foolish with regards to his safety, but he was ingenious in regard to horses. There are no obvious parallels to the bridle found in the animals he may have been familiar with. The bridle couldn't have been ported over from cattle or sheep, as both have different mouth structures. How he came upon the idea is a matter of speculation. He likely tried placing a rope in all manners of locations to control his mount before he stumbled upon the unique gap between a horse's front incisors and premolars. Perhaps the most plausible explanation for Napoleon's discovery is simply a deep familiarity with the anatomy of horses. Maybe even in a culture known for its horse obsession, Napoleon's stood out. Napoleon's eureka moment is unsurpassed in the history of human transportation. By inventing brakes, Napoleon invented speed. With his well-placed rope, humans went from slow to fast, and horse riding remained the fastest way for humans to travel over land for more than 5,000 years. A mounted rider wasn't beaten until August 28, 1830, when the steam-powered train Tom Thumb finally bested what Napoleon enabled. Unsurprisingly, speed dramatically changed life on the steppes. Anthony believes the Bataille began to ride horses in order to hunt horses, vastly improving their productivity, but also changing the structure of the culture. When the Spanish introduced domesticated horses to the Americas in the 16th century, they triggered a horseback riding arms race among the Native Americans of the plains. As a trader in the American West wrote in 1851, "Men on foot cannot live, even in the best game countries, in the same camp with those who have horses. The latter reach the game, secure what they want, and drive it beyond the reach of the former." The horse and its speed had another, more insidious effect for the villagers of the steppes. Before Napoleon's invention, the most dangerous part of a raid was the getaway. A raider could surprise his target and steal their goods, but the on-foot retreat from an armed and vengeful enemy posed a serious problem. With the bridle, horses became the world's first getaway vehicles, and thus tipped the balance of power in favor of the raiders, says Anthony. This had dangerous and damaging consequences. Without written records, it's difficult to confirm an increase in raiding in Central Asia subsequent to Napoleon, but steppe villages added elaborate defense walls and suspicious synchronization with the introduction of horseback riding. When the risk-taking Napoleon invented the bridle, he may have also invented a license to steal, and life on the steppes may have taken an ominous turn. At first, mounted warriors used their horses simply as transportation to and from battle, and not in actual combat, largely because their weaponry didn't work on horseback. It took nearly a millennium for the Sintashta, culture of the Russian steppes to invent cavalry by developing the chariot. Later innovations in the bow enabled Genghis Khan's riders to both ride and fire from horseback, which he used to reign terror over Asia. Horses continued to play a formidable role in battle for nearly 6,000 years, from Napoleon's raids through Poland's cavalry charge at Krohanty at the beginning of World War II. Yet perhaps the largest societal change with the bridle wrought was the reallocation of resources and the rise of class, status, and stratified societies. Because a herder on horseback can control twice as many sheep or cattle as one on foot, in herding cultures, ownership, power, and wealth began to concentrate in a minority. After the invention of the bridle, archaeologists find a dramatic increase in elaborate grave goods, leading archaeological indicator of income inequality. Napoleon himself eventually found his way into one of these graves, perhaps by way of a tragically rapid deceleration. When Napoleon invented speed, he didn't just invent a new way to live, he invented a new way to die. And because evolution had not selected for hominins who feared speed as it had for those who feared snakes or heights, Napoleon was ill-equipped to understand the risks of his invention and dramatically unprepared for the new threat. It may be that Napoleon, the risk-taking show-off genius, fell from his horse at full gallop, and the inventor of speed may have become one of the first to die from it. And that's the end of that chapter. Please like and subscribe. I always put these books together and chapters together in a playlist. So if you'd like to hear the full coverage from this story or from this book, check out the playlist. I think you'll like it.